Welcome to the Infrastructure Podcast. My name is Anthony Oliver, and today's discussion is going to be a little bit different as we delve into the world of cycling and data, with not one guest today, but with two. But let me start first with a little story. Last year, I completed an epic 9-day, 1,000-mile cycle adventure from Land's End to John O'Groats to raise money for my local hospice, St Christopher's in Sydenham, South London. And by the way, there's a link on my website. Please do support their latest What Matters Most campaign. Anyway, it was an interesting and rather challenging few days. We used well-planned routes that kept us off the main roads and largely away from the madness that is the strategic road network. But what it did highlight was the variability and often shockingly terrible condition of road surfaces and cycleways available to those battling the elements on two wheels. Yes, there were some lovely stretches of smooth, deserted back roads to travel along, but there were also many appalling road surfaces to navigate, some really poorly thought out and maintained dedicated cycleways, which quite often, frankly, were more dangerous than the main carriageways themselves. Nothing new, of course, to the average commuter cyclist or Sunday tourer, but what it does do is get you thinking. You know, with the rising demand for active travel, which is being supercharged through the ubiquitous electric hire bikes and scooters across every major UK city, surely this problem has to be solved. Which brings me straight back to today. Well, fortunately on my cycle adventure, someone else carried my bags. All I had on my bike was water bottles, a puncture kit, my Wahoo bike computer, on my iPhone, and of course my wonderful high-tech internet-enabled See.Sense safety lights, which not only kept me safe with their excellent bright and reactive lighting, but they also monitored the road conditions and my cycling decisions every pedal stroke and pothole along the way. So it's therefore my pleasure and something of a thrill to welcome Irene and Philip McAleese to the podcast today, the couple from Northern Ireland who invented my lights and this technology, and it's a fascinating story. So Irene and Philip, welcome to the Infrastructure Podcast.
Thank you. It's a great pleasure to be here today. Thanks for inviting us along.
Yeah, thank you, Anthony. Absolutely delighted to be here as well.
Great. Well, let's start with you, Philip. I mean, I set the scene to a certain extent. I mean, you started with a Kickstarter funding in 2013 for an intelligent bike light idea, but the technology has been developed. You've had pilot schemes in Essex, in Dublin, I believe in Victoria, Australia, but now in Newham in London, and you're helping local authorities really understand how cyclists use the highways, how they can design measures to improve them, and of course, maybe work out what puts people off. So what is See.Sense? Is it a business about bike lights or is it about data?
It's a little bit of both. So obviously the bike lights are very much as part of our DNA. It's where we started, and when we set out, we didn't know we would be a data company. We set out on a quest to improve safety and people's perception of safety, using sensors, as you say, to profile both the rider and the environment around them, allowing it to flash brighter and faster in response to risk. But we quickly discovered during testing that data was super interesting and super useful for local authorities to help them have better understanding and make better decisions around infrastructure, and where it was working and where it could perhaps be improved. So really that smart sensor technology is the core of everything we do. And it began with lights and as you say, has moved into data.
But of course, we're all being tracked 24 hours a day by our phones, by our watches. You know, my cycle, my Wahoo, it keeps Strava up to date with all my cycling. If it doesn't happen on Strava, it doesn't happen in reality, as we all know. What makes See.Sense data different?
So a lot of that tracking that you describe is GPS tracking. So it's understanding about where you go and perhaps the mode of transport that you're using. Where we're different is we're using patented sensor technology, which allows us to take 800 readings per second. And we feed that through AI that we run actually on the device itself. And that tells us not only what you're doing as a cyclist, but the environment around you. So it's quite different and a much deeper insight that you would get from GPS.
Yeah.
And so allows a much better view of what's happening.
So the lights are, they're a means to deliver this technology. Do you think they'll ever be a thing of the past for you? I mean, they're lovely, but why do you need to be in that extremely competitive bicycle light market?
So we did start there. We do now have another product called the Summit Tracker, which we've deployed onto e-bikes and e-scooters and indeed regular bike fleets as well. And as a next step, we're able to partner and to work with other organizations because actually what's really clever is not the hardware, it's the algorithms that the hardware enables us to run.
Right,
And that's where our expertise really lies. So the lights have been super useful to get us started. Summit's allowed us to grow, and ultimately we can partner and go further beyond that.
Okay, we'll turn to you, Irene. Chief Strategy Office. You're driving the direction, and you've just won this contract with a Newham Council in East London to help them understand their cycle network. I mean, this comes on the back of the work that you did in Essex. I mean, what are these projects fundamentally all about?
So these projects are fundamentally about trying to monitor and evaluate projects or schemes that are going in so they can see how well they are doing, what they can learn from them, how they can improve, sometimes how they can use the evidence from these schemes to try to advocate for more funding, to do more of them. But fundamentally what See.Sense is doing is filling a gap in the existing data that's available. So as Philip mentioned, yes, there's GPS data available from some things like sort of some apps. You might have counters, physical counters that are installed. You might have some cameras mounted on a junction, for example. But those things are, while very useful, don't provide the really rich sort of data that is needed to understand people's experience while they're cycling. So we can see from our data where there are swerving patterns, where there are braking patterns, and these are, we know that these are correlating with hotspot areas forming that people might be having issues with. We understand the condition of the road surface that they're going over. We can also, I guess, as well, because it's mounted to a bike, it's where people are riding. We understand route choices that people are making. How does the condition of the road affect the choice that people are making, etc. And even if you think, well, sometimes you might have a counter or a camera mounted on a junction, but actually it's a parallel road that cyclists are using, and there was no information about that road, and people were using it because it wasn't quite as steep as wherever they'd mounted the camera. So there's lots of really rich information that can come through.
So what do you actually do? Do you give people the lights? You give them the technology? What is the project? How do you actually make it work?
So we have a couple of ways to work with cities. One is if people have actually just bought our lights as a retail product. In fact, we've got quite a lot of people who've done that in London, for example. They've decided to opt in our app and share their aggregated data insights. It just organically creates this pool of really useful data. And in that circumstance, actually, Transport for London have tapped into that data already and started to use it to understand cycling risk in the city and look at how they can apply that to reduce collision for Vision Zero. But a lot of cities say, well, actually, we don't have enough See.Sense users in our city, but we really want that data. So we can work with them in two ways. One is they can fund a project with us where they literally buy a bulk of our lights and distribute them out to people as part of a smart cycling campaign and involve people in collecting data in their city, which is going to help improve conditions. So we run those projects, as I said. There's one live, as you mentioned, in Newham at the moment. We also have we have a number of projects that we've run with local authorities around the UK doing that. We have a massive project in Melbourne with 1,000 cyclists doing that, and our first US one as well. So the bike light projects are quite popular. But also we have another way, as Philip mentioned, of collecting the data on through our Summit GPS sensor tracker, which can actually be fitted to bikes. So we have a big project in Essex, for example, with over 2,000 bikes collecting that data.
Fascinating way that you can work with the local authorities, but I mentioned the demand for active travel. I know you've also, Irene, you've been rallying against the 200 million plus cuts in this central government budget, to active travel. I mean, how do these cuts really impact your ambitions?
Well, it's obviously really disappointing to see the cuts. And of course, are pushing back on behalf of the industry, but fundamentally. With less funds, what it means is that better decisions are going to need to be taken with the funds that are there, right? So ultimately, data-led decision making is going to become increasingly more important, and this is where I think we can really help. We have, with the ability for our data, as I mentioned already, to monitor and evaluate the schemes that are in there, work out what is working well and what they might want to do more of, and be able to justify the the investment in those things, because there's a measurable ROI on what's working. So that is critical. We can look at how to target interventions. So what we've done in London is identify hazardous locations using our data where we can start to sort of target those interventions in a meaningful way. And even, rather than a needle in a haystack, you can say, here are the top 10 locations where we can actually be proactive and identify a location to make an impact. We've got data to know if we make a change here, an intervention, that it's how it's worked. So that's going to be, I think, more and more important. And then again, I'm starting to see more demand now for the road surface data as well, because with the investment in cycle infrastructure, at some point they have to be maintained, right?
You've noticed that as well. You've noticed that, yeah.
Yeah, so really being proactive with maintenance as well is a good way to be efficient with funds, rather than waiting for serious defects and potholes to form. Getting ahead of that, making repairs in advance can be quite cost effective. So starting to see much more demand for that as well. So I'm quite in a way it is dispiriting to see the cuts in England. But I do think this is going to put more pressure to use the limited resources well, and this is where data-led decision-making really steps in. And on the other hand, we're a global company now. We're working with cities around the world. We've got a big project in Victoria and Melbourne. They've got some very ambitious budgets and funding down there. We've got just finished our first project in the US. There's a massive budget there actually for Vision Zero and the work that's happening in that space. Ireland has one of the biggest budgets per capita in Europe actually for investment in active travel. So and similarly Scotland also has a pretty healthy budget. So
England's not the only place that's really driving this, yeah.
That's it.
No.
Yes,
well, Philip,
yes.
you talked about the technology being at the heart of this, and the technology which is actually analysing this data. I mean, give us a quick guided tour. What is the technology required for a project, say, like Newham, and how has it been evolving over the years?
So the core technology remained pretty much the same over the last 10 years. What we've done is to really adapt it to different forms of micromobility. So from initially from bikes into e-bikes, and now, of course, into scooters. And then we're working with operators like Dot in London, and that's extending out to Madrid. And really what we're discovering and learning from the projects is really the differences in different localities. So, what does female cycling versus male cycling look like in Dublin? And that's very different from what it looks like in London.
Oh, right.
Because of a number of factors. And so, teasing out these things, we feel that there's lots of insights we can offer, but we're still on a journey of exploration and learning to see, where do we get the best insights? What are the best things we can do? And so it's
so just explore that. So you could, if you looked at the data stream, you could tell whether that cyclist was male, female, based in London or based in Dublin, could you?
So it's optional information that they can opt in to add to the app to allow them to identify as particular genders. We offer a range of genders, and then we group by the various different genders that we see. And so we saw in Dublin that female cyclists are more likely to experience a rougher road surface than male cyclists. And in London, it's actually the opposite. And so it's because in London, you've got better infrastructure, and the female cyclists will tend to take longer journeys to stay on that infrastructure.
Wow, that's really interesting.
Yeah. And interestingly, even where there is cycling infrastructure, the male cyclists will tend to make more of a choice around whether to use it or not. They may see a more direct route that perhaps doesn't use the cycling infrastructure and choose that over something that's comparatively, built and possibly safer for the cyclist. No. Well, it is a fascinating area, and we'll get into that a little bit more in a moment. But I mean, I just want to talk about yourselves a little bit more first. I mean, you're talking to me both from Belfast, and you're clearly working in different rooms, in probably in the same building. Obvious question: a married couple running a business together. Does that make it easier or harder to succeed in business? Yeah, it's a question we get a lot. We think it makes it easier. With being a husband and wife team, there's obviously a level of trust there that's difficult to replicate with work colleagues. So, there's an implicit trust. We obviously understand how to communicate and work very well together. I think the key to the success is that we do very different things within the business, so we don't step on each other's toes. And we respect and trust each other to deliver on the things that we say we're going to do. So, in our case, it works really incredibly well.
Well, I mean, Irene, your background is most recently consulting, and Philip, yours is finance and IT. I mean, Irene, you ditching a safe career to follow your bike-like dream, was that a hard decision for you?
So it was funny because Phil and I were always the kind of couple that we always, although we had very good, I suppose, what most people say, it's good corporate careers. We always had thought about what if we could start a business one day. And Phil, to be fair, had a few wacky ideas, I thought, that were out there. But when he came home one day from cycling to work in Singapore, where we were at the time, and said, I've had this idea for a bike light that flashes and does, reacts to its environment. It was funny because when I first heard this idea, I thought, actually, this is maybe something there's maybe something in this, because I thought if we were going to give up our corporate careers and start something, it has to be something fundamentally that we both felt we had a value alignment with. And I thought, if we can help get more people on bikes, that's great for reducing congestion, pollution, health, so many things bikes are a silver bullet for. And I just saw that actually, yes, let's give it a go, because if we never try it, we'll never know.
Well, I mean, presumably you were both keen cyclists before See.Sense. I mean, has this made you more or less passionate about cycling? Do you like, I just still want to go near anything to do with cycling when I'm not doing this job?
I think very much more interested and more passionate about it. I mean, I was a cycle commuter, which is where really the interest came from. I took up cycling commuting after really not being on a bicycle much since I was a child, and obviously grew up on a bicycle with a BMX and a rally chopper and all those great things back in the day. And I absolutely loved getting back on a bike and experiencing that for the first time in a very long time. Ironically, running a cycling business, we probably get less time to cycle. I no longer commute by bicycle. We've picked an office that's almost too close to cycle to. So we've very much become leisure cyclists, so it's taken on a different role. But we love when we get the opportunity getting out on the bikes with our girls. And
I still cycle down to the office.
I saw that you had visited Brompton cycles the other day, and you were eulogising about Brompton cycles. I think you say you've ordered one.
I have.
Irene?
Yes. Well, yeah. I was really impressed. Genuinely, I loved it's just really exciting to see the passion, the fact that it's made in the UK, the attention to detail. Just a brand as well that I think shares a lot of values with us, because they, fundamentally they're not just about selling a bike. They actually want to see a change in cities. They want to see more people riding them. And I think that's a bit like us. We're not just about selling a bike light. We actually want to see cities transform. So I really felt there was a bit of a meeting of minds there. It was a really nice sort of alignment. I feel I've always been a fan, but now after actually just being there, I got it took me over the edge, and I have one on order. Well,
very good. No, well, I mean, clearly you're both immersed in the business, and you've got a big team to support there now, but you've also got a family. I mean, how do you separate, your work life from your home life? Because you're always flying off to Europe, flying to Australia. You're going all around, off to London. I mean, how do you balance that?
We're very lucky, actually. One of the reasons we came to Northern Ireland from Singapore when we decided to start the company was that we knew we had Phil's parents here, who are fantastic. So we've got this sort of irreplaceable grandparent support, and they have been really critical to what we do. We've got that backstop. Whereas if we had lived in Singapore and started the business there with no one behind us to fill in any of those gaps, I don't think it would have been possible. So they have helped us a lot, and we're really happy that the kids have got quite a nice, close relationship with the grandparents as well as a result. We're just quite organised, I suppose. We have to tag team a lot. It's very rare that we'll both get to go away together at the same time. So we often have to tag team. But yeah, I guess we make it work, and it's something. I think at the end of the day, it's our business, and we love the fact that we can make decisions that move things forward in a way that we like as well. So yeah.
Yeah. It was quite a difference in lifestyle, I imagine, though, moving back from Singapore, Phil, back to Northern Ireland. But was that also a lifestyle choice that you made there to move away from banking?
It was, yeah. So, I worked very hard in my corporate career and I was successful and very much enjoyed it. But I realized I was spending a lot of time at the office and not very much with, we just had our second child in Singapore. And so for me, part of it was about, the intention was to work less hours. I can't say honestly that's true in a startup, but at least we get to work the hours here at home. So we get to do the school runs and see a lot more of our children than I'm sure I would if I was still working in the corporate career. So Northern Ireland is a great place to set up a company as well. There's a great spirit here of entrepreneurship. There are factories where we still manufacture our goods here locally. And a lot of very skilled people that have helped us, obviously, along the way.
Well, meanwhile, back at the ranch, I mean, talking about your clients and their challenges. I mean, Irene, local authorities, as we said, they're wrestling with their falling budgets, but they're also wrestling with this climate emergency. I mean, so is that where you see the growth in your business? Really working closely with local authorities to derive out this technology.
Yeah, I mean, as you probably know, UK signed up to sort of net zero targets, and local authorities are very keen on that. And one way is active travel is going to stay high on the agenda, I think, going forward as one of the key enablers to reach that. But I think one of the great opportunities is not just expecting local authorities to step up, but really the problem's too big. We need businesses to join the party as well. Yeah. And, businesses, I think, have got a huge role to play in helping to tackle net zero. And they can do this in partnership with the local authorities to really impact placemaking, to make the cities and where offices are located more attractive for people to cycle into and safer, etc. So we're really excited actually to launch a new commuter package that will do just that will allow employers to distribute the bike lights out to employees. Oh, right. They can then start to get information about their CO2 saved that they can share back for sustainability reporting. And then all the while the employers know that, hey, we've actually helped using the See.Sense lights create this pool of sensor data which could be accessed by the city. And they've helped to it's a win-win-win.
So if an organisation, I don't know, has got 100 staff or 2,000 staff, they can contact you and then sign up to some scheme which gives them access to the lights or to technology which they can distribute and be part of this whole program. When does that start then?
We've just launched this in Ireland next week. And we're about to launch this in the UK in the matter of weeks. So it's very exciting.
That's very exciting. Yeah. No, because I was going to say, how can you help infrastructure professionals, and from the public and private sector meet those challenges? And I suppose this is one very clear way that they can do that.
It's a great way to do it. We provide a very simple dashboard where they can see the total miles that employees have travelled, report back on CO2 saved, and then even if they want, they can use that data then for reward and recognition. If they want to pay their employees per mile, they've got the data there to do that as well. That's all done in a very GDPR-friendly way. So it's a lovely streamlined data dashboard. And of course, the employee gets the wonderful See.Sense light.
Exactly, yeah. But Phil, I suppose the benefit for employers or local authorities is that they have got this pool of data that they can draw on, which enables them to demonstrate what they're doing to actually, I suppose, change their employer behaviour.
Absolutely, and with increasing. When you look at Scope 3 emissions, which is the emissions of people travelling to and from the building, that can be 40-50% of a building's total CO2. So really important to understand more around what the cycling culture is like there, what it could be, who lives close enough to be able to do commute, or who takes the train and could be able to use the bicycle for part of that commute, and so that's sort of really easy. Offsetting is relatively simple to do, but quite difficult to measure. So we've obviously packaged that up in a nice simple dashboard to allow the employers to monitor and track that and get some easy wins around reducing their CO2.
Okay. No, well, maybe we'll have get the Anthony Oliver Consulting signed up to it, but it'd just be the one of me. But anyway, no. I mean, you spend a lot. Irene, you spend a lot of time travelling around Europe and the world, assessing the market for See.Sense. And so what do you see as the future, Irene? What is your kind of what is your short to medium term goals that you need to achieve in the next few years?
So we've been on the journey from hardware, and we're doing much more on data at the moment. And I think I like to see our data increasingly used, not just as a standalone data source, but really starting to integrate with other forms of data. So there's no one silver bullet of data that answers every question, but the clever part is about combining those different data sets to come up to help cities get to a decision quicker about what they need to do. So I think part of what we're going to be doing is helping cities make just better decisions about how they do that investment, whether that's just See.Sense data or whether combining See.Sense data with other forms and even with other modes of data. So we're getting more and more sophisticated using machine learning and AI and lots of cool stuff in the background to really up the game in terms of decision making. So that's one thing. The other thing is really scaling up what we do. We want more data collection. We want more See.Sense devices out in the field. And so this is our partnerships with bike share operators, scooters, more of these OEM integration into bike fleet, consumer bikes. There's loads of stuff that we can do to start to scale out. We've done a lot of work over the years to prove out our use cases and show why our data is so unique. We've got those in the bag. Now it's time to scale up and do more of it. Yeah.
So will it be the case that we see your technology embedded into every Trek bike that's sold or every specialised bike that's sold? I mean, is that something which you have an ambition to do?
It's a potential, yes. We absolutely, we could be doing that, and also with share bikes and scooters as well. So yeah.
And with all these devices attached to all these bicycles, is there a privacy and a security issue which you need to resolve there? I mean, that's something which always seems to be something which holds back the use of data.
It's a great question, and I think we do opt in through consent. So we are very upfront about what data we're collecting and why, and we explain all of your rights under GDPR and our terms and conditions in a very easy to understand and plain English way. I think why it works so well for us is that there's really good alignment between what the cyclist wants and what we like to do with the data. So it's all about improving the cycling experience, making it safer, improving infrastructure, highlighting some of the challenges. And showing where it's working well so that more of that can be done. And I think because of that, it just makes it really easy.
Okay, I suppose I imagine that there's some cultural issues that you need to break down with local authorities when you're talking to them about the use of data and about bringing in this new technology.
Yeah, I think one of the key things is being able to firstly, we've learned that the visualization of the data is very important. We can talk about data, but actually when we can bring up a data visualization and say, here's what's happening in your community, and people can see that, it's so engaging. And people say, oh, that's my street. I can see where it becomes very real, and I think that engagement is key.
So you can actually see where cyclists, for instance, weave around a hole or move away from
you can start to see, well, you're looking at the patterns. We don't tend to look at individual cyclists, but we're looking at aggregated data, and we start to see these patterns. But when you overlay them on streets, people can get very engaged with that. So I think I've learned that the stakeholder management, even in the projects that we do, is critical. So you may have had the project procured by someone in the active travel, department who wanted a bit of data, but actually getting the leadership right up throughout the organisation is critical for this sort of longer term engagement with it. So these tricks of being able to visualise the data, share that, show it, that really helps stakeholder engagement and to sustain the project. The other thing that we've learned is, I guess, we can't just we can't just think that we know the issue that we're solving for the client, because hey, we're not transport planners. We don't really know the issues that they have. We have to learn and listen to what their challenges are, what they need the data to do. And if we can show that our data solves a pain point, that's where it becomes successful, because it's like, well, oh, you mean at the moment I've got to send somebody out with a clipboard and look at the road and understand, which costs a lot of money and a lot of man hours, and you mean that you can just automate that and give me a score that I can then go and prioritize? Wow, that's just saved me time and money. So if we can understand the pain point and then really demonstrate how we help to solve that, that's where you get the engagement as well, rather than just a kind of a sense of overwhelm, which I think some local authorities can go, oh, I've already got so much data, I've got too much data, I don't know what to do with, and actually you've just added to my workload because I don't even know where to start.
It's about making it easier them to do that. Yeah.
Really understanding good questions, trying to get to the nut of what their pain point is and how we help solve it.
Okay, ensuring that See.Sense stays ahead in this field, Phil. I mean, innovation, it's expensive. I mean, how does a small business like you succeed in a world which is full of giants? Cycling has got some very giant companies involved in them. Technology's got some very large innovation budgets. How do you succeed in this world?
I think it's the speed at which we can do innovation. I mean, the UK is a wonderful place to do R&D. There's some great benefits from HMRC in terms of R&D tax credits and those things that we can surrender for cash, which helps us to do more R&D that we would otherwise be able to do at our size. But it's really about the speed. We can do 5 or 10 iterations of an idea or a piece of technology in the same time that a larger incumbent would take to do one iteration, and it's really that speed that allows us to stay well ahead of everyone else.
Yeah, and you've got Queen's University there on your doorstep with lots and lots of brain power to help. I mean, Irene, who else can help you? I mean, is there a link with the automotive sector or a stronger link with the infrastructure sector? Who can help? I
think one of the great things is for our company is that we've always been great at sort of partnering with other people, expertise, different universities, for example, for sure, and infrastructure companies have been fantastic too. AECOM, for example, helped us validate our road surface data by literally getting their engineers and saying, oh, this sounds like a novel kind of idea. Let's send our engineers out and do a visual inspection on the road and compare that to what See.Sense does. And hey, it actually did help to really move us forward in terms of our understanding. And those kind of partnerships are going to become more and more critical for us. We're in discussion with a number of these kind of firms actually about partnering with them as one of the tools in their toolkits that they can use when they go in and do an audit or when they do a monitoring and evaluation. Each large project they do, say if they design a roundabout or something like this, there'll be an allocation for a monitoring and evaluation budget as a slice of that, and that's where we can come in and provide a novel new data set that will help them move that forward. So infrastructure organisations, absolutely, please come and talk to us. We're very open to partnering and one of the key things I think is our strengths, which we've done all the way along working with local authorities as well, is this idea of co-creation. So understanding the need, being able to co-develop a solution, using each other's strengths to come up with an idea and outcome. I think that is where we provide an innovation and stay ahead of the curve.
Okay. So, is the dream seeing... We talked about, putting See.Sense technology on every bike and every scooter. That's one dream, I suppose. Phil, what does success look like for See.Sense?
I think it's about really the impact we can have on our cities and places. How do we help them make healthier places and healthier cities where people are using active transport more, active mobility, really getting around and having, these great cities that people want to live in. So I think the more impact we can have using our data to help planners with that, the more we'll get from it.
Okay. Well, there's a lot for us all to think about there, and some really exciting opportunities. And as you say, Irene, if anyone out there wants to get in touch and get involved in this, what sounds like a very exciting initiative you got there for bringing in vast quantities of people across the private sector, across infrastructure to help you out, then do that. So what just get hold of you at the via your website, I suppose.
Yeah, they can just drop me an email, or you can find us via the website or LinkedIn as well. It's great.
Brilliant. I will look forward to keeping my eye on what's going on with that. So thanks so much for joining me today, Phil and Irene, on the Infrastructure Podcast, and help us navigate a path through this very interesting but very difficult to get through area. So thanks very much for joining me.
Thank you, Anthony.
Thanks, it's been a great pleasure to be here.
Excellent. Thanks, and great to talk to you. And I say, it's great to see and meet and talk to the people behind the light that I covered so much on my bicycle. So that's all we've got time for today, though, unfortunately, on the Infrastructure Podcast. But we have got more in the pipeline and more guests to talk to as we continue to probe some of the big and interesting issues faced across the sector. If you haven't done so already, do check out the Infrastructure Podcast website, www.infrastructure-podcast.com, where you will find background links and to some of the issues discussed today, and all the latest podcasts to listen to and to share with colleagues. So thanks for joining us today. Thanks again to Irene and to Philip, and I look forward to seeing you again very soon.